if we had to ban Twitter, I'd be on board. I'd be like, government, come in and just take everyone's phone,
Please?
including mine.
Yeah, list us all.
I will gladly
Burn the
give
hell
up.
site.
It's a horrible thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's an I think Twitter is an example of why direct democracy doesn't work.
Mm-hmm.
It is literal mob rule on that site.
Yeah.
And it's just people screaming as loud as possible and saying the stupidest
Insanity.
things. And that's what the world would be like without this the system.
Mm-hmm.
Heaven forbid we got rid of the Electoral College and Twitter represented what actually won.
Oof.
Yeah.
Well, what do you think I guess social media in general, but specifically Twitter, what effect do you think that has had on the progressive left? People like AOC and Ilhan Omar, yeah?
It's made them absolutely insane. Look at Bernie Sanders. He's been like, when I think of politics in this country, you have like the left and the right. And Donald Trump is like sitting on a stump in like kind of center right position. And he's flicking, little bread at the birds. And he's just sitting there and he's like, I'm over here because everybody's sitting there and we're going to build the wall. It's going to be great. And then Bernie was next to him. But then Bernie was in a car just driving left and just kept going.
Yeah.
And now he's not even in the room with anybody. He's just gone. Bernie Sanders originally was like, end the free trade agreements. We need border security. Open borders is a right-wing proposal.
It's because Hillary cut his brakes.
Yeah.
Couldn't stop the car. He just
It
kept
was
going.
her?
Well, I don't want to blame her, but the DNC cut his brakes.
Yeah,
I
but he
don't
still
know.
bent
I
the
don't-
knee.
I don't
Sure
know.
did.
I think it's because they're eating their own refuse. The far left is
It's lovely imagery.
It's like Human Centipede, but like instead of one line, it's a circle where they're all stitched together.
Oof.
Yeah,
So-
that's nice.
So what happens is, and I've explained this quite a bit. If someone on the right steps out of line even a little bit, banned instantly.
Gone, yeah.
So all that's left are these very clean cut, for the most part, moderate conservative types on social media. Milo Yiannopoulos, Alex Jones, Laura Loomer, all removed from Twitter. So they're not part of the conversation anymore. Now you have Jack Posobiec and like Will Chamberlain, and they're very, for all the criticisms that people give Jack, he's still very just kind of, I don't know what the right word is.
To me, he's just, mainstream conservative.
I want to say kind of like down tone, not bombastic, not screaming.
yeah.
You're getting like, I hereby think this is important for this reason. It's kind of like, okay, I get it.
Low key.
But the left is allowed to say whatever they want.
Dude, it's
Yeah.
a private company. I worked at Mines for a long time. I co-founded the company and worked as an admin.
Oh,
You
cool. I
get
didn't-
total control of who you want to ban within reason of how you
Well, so-
interpret the code, how you interpret it.
So think about what
It's
happens.
like-
So Jack Dorsey, who literally donated $10 million to Ibram X.
Yeah.
Kendi, that basically that blacks, I don't know what you want to call him, but he's essentially
He is a supremacist.
yeah, he's
for
he's
sure.
he's a segregationist, I guess.
Yeah,
he
that's
called Amy Coney Barrett, a bunch of really awful things because of her kids. But anyway, Jack Dorsey donates to that guy. So then he allows the fringe of the fringe. And so because there's no brakes on the left on social media, they're just going full speed, Mach 7 to the left. Whereas conservatives are being held where they are because if they step out of line, they'll get banned.
Right. And
So then that turns someone like liberal Tim Pool into a conservative because they just keep going further and further
Everyone
left.
else is
Yeah.
gone, yeah.
Well, I mean, I think with the whole Twitter thing and Facebook as well, YouTube, all of these tech platforms, I think we are, if we're not already there, we are entering an age where we're going to be a technocracy, right? And what I don't understand is right now in the US, and really I think most democracies, there are campaign finance laws and restrictions about how you can advertise on these social media platforms because they recognize it is campaigning. So how can you tell me that Donald Trump posting an ad onto Facebook or whatever, that's political activism, needs to be declared and monitored, all that, but Facebook can ban whoever they want flat out, control whatever stories flat out, and we can't do anything about that? That makes no sense.
Facebook just banned 216 Trump ads because he was talking about, he said a bunch of the ads were like, Joe Biden will increase the amount of refugees coming in this country. A very serious issue that people are concerned with. If you are concerned about increasing immigrants and refugees in this country, it doesn't mean you're racist. Facebook banned them.
Because they think that's racist.
They have a rule against telling people that they're in danger due to, other people based on national origin or whatever. And it's arbitrary.
Wait, so does that mean that Democrats aren't allowed to tell people that the Russians are trying to fix their election?
It does, but of course they'll get away with it.
Yeah.
And they'll get to do whatever they want. I mean, and boy, are they really pushing that Russia garbage?
They
It's
are.
amazing.
And you know what's
It's
funny?
back, baby.
I'm old enough where I can remember that, oh gosh, when Mitt Romney was running against Barack Obama, he actually named Russia as the biggest threat to the United States. And all the liberals at the time were laughing at him.
1980s
This
called.
this isn't the Cold War, Grandpa. And then, just several years later, here we are, and they're trying to make, and don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that like Russia is amazing in terms of track record for human rights. And I'm also not saying they're not trying to influence things, but they're really making them out to be the boogeyman.
This is a really good example of why service guarantees citizenship as an idea. Because right now you have these I call them low information belligerents. So there's like a dude I know in Chicago who's always retweeting stuff. And it's the funniest thing to me because I'm like, bro, I know you. You sit around making sourdough bread in your apartment. You're not paying attention at all to any of this. You're seeing a spicy hot take from someone that you don't understand and you're hitting retweet. You're not going to vote. I know you're not going to vote. But you're pushing these unhinged, busted ideas because it's tribal. And then you're sitting there going like, duh, I'm so smart. Yeah. And then what? And then they have the nerve to criticize me. Dude, I read nothing but news all day, every day for hours. And then I do 4 hours of content on it. I'm not saying I know everything in the world, but I'm pretty sure I know a bit more than these random people who think they're smart. So you get a bunch of people who have no idea what's going on, who for tribal reasons are like, we want to own the cons. So we're going to go vote against our own interests, while simultaneously believing the Trump supporters are voting against their own interests. That's one of the funniest things too about this whole cycle is like someone commented on one of my threads being like, Trump has lied to you. He has, told you to live recklessly. And now you've all been convinced the whole time while he's getting all the best treatment in the world. It's like the COVID thing. Like he told you to drink bleach while he gets medicine. It's like, except he never said that.
Yeah.
Like Joe Biden said on the debate stage, why don't you inject some bleach? And then Trump responded that was sarcastic. Trump, you didn't even say to inject bleach. Man, Trump was really off his game, huh?
Yeah.
But it's like, I don't care. What these people don't realize is the best example of the left having no idea what's going on is the Proud Boys hashtag. You saw this?
Yes, I did.
So there was 500,000 tweets of mostly LGBT people, and it was photos of like gay couples saying we're Proud Boys. And the actual Proud Boys didn't care.
Yeah.
And they never did. And they didn't even use the hashtag. So I guess like the leader of the Proud Boys issued a statement saying we have gay members. We're totally cool with this. Like, I don't understand what the point is. They don't care. The journalists were actually saying after the debate, don't interview the Proud Boys. Don't give them press. And I'm like, the real reason they're saying that is because then they'd be forced to interview a black man and ask him why he's a white supremacist. And Americans would be like, huh?
Wait,
what? What? Who's this? What? But that's the name of the game. Don't talk. Don't report the news. Don't tell people what's really going on. When I started doing like my daily YouTube stuff after I left Fusion, I was going to Sweden because you had this right-wing narrative of all this violence in Sweden, and Donald Trump was like, "You see what's going on last night in Sweden?" So I said, "I'm going to go." I got hit up by a bunch of Vice News journalists saying, "Don't do it." And I was like, "Why not?" And they're like, "Because they're lying." And I was like, "Who's lying?" The conservatives. And I was
then
like,
you'd go and you'd see that.
I was like, great,
No
I'll go
problem.
and prove that they're lying. And they're like, no, don't do it. Donate your money to charity. And I was like,
What?
I was really confused. I was like, dude, I worked with you like a year ago. You know I travel around the world covering news whenever there's a big story. Why wouldn't I go to Sweden? It sounds too... I was like, I was literally there 3 months before. I had ice cream, walking around. It was totally fine. I was in Mama. And I was like, I don't understand why I'm getting berated all of a sudden. This was when, like, I guess... I think the culture war started. And I was like off doing my thing. I went to like Japan. I was in Fukushima and just filming documentaries and minding my own business. And then all of these people were going insane. And people I had worked with who were like supposedly normal journalists lost their minds. And they were like, for the sake of our tribe, don't you dare report the news. And I was like, huh? That makes no sense to me. But those people are going to vote now. They're going to vote after they're telling me not to report the news. They're telling others not to report the news. Now you have a bunch of low information people who think they're smarter than everyone. And they're voting.
I think there's a xenophobic tinge in the United States it's just prevalent in our culture. Like I was grow up.
What do you mean by that?
I was told South America's dangerous. I was like, oh, and so I believed it. And
But
then I went to
relatively.
South America in the jungle in Chile where they don't have local police. They only have. I went there, and it's not. I mean, yeah, it is. The United States is great. Our local law enforcement is killer. It's the best. It's not the word I should use. Our local law enforcement is awesome. Having a local law enforcement protecting you from the federal level or from the state level, from the federal level is amazing. Like in Chile, it's only national cops. So if you mess up one place, the whole country, you're a criminal. You don't have local protection. But it's not something to fear. And unless you go there, you wouldn't know that, because our whole culture is like, don't leave, you're safe here. So
Relatively.
are any of us qualified to vote, except for the ones that dig deep?
Well, I think
We're
A
voting-
lot of people would say no, frankly. There are people out there who are very disillusioned and they just want to kind of return to, I mean, I've even seen people like advocate for monarchies right now, like a constitutional monarchy, just because they're so disillusioned with things. I'm not doing that, but yeah, I mean, a lot of people feel the exact same way. They think the system's broken. Votes can't be trusted, and even if they could be, do people have enough information to vote? It's really scary, and there's no good answer.
Yeah, there's no perfect system, because if you get, let's say you have a monarchy and you have a great leader, then the country is going to work really, really well. But then they have a kid, and the kid's a dick, and then the country, doesn't do well. Or you get these ideologues who think they're smarter than the collective, computational power of the human mind, decentralized. So like a really good example of that would be like Hugo Chavez or Fidel Castro or any other communist, where it's like the capitalistic system we have is decentralized apportionment of resources. So you have each individual deciding what they need and when they want it, and then people freely trade, and the system just operates in a decentralized network. The communists think one individual can calculate better than millions of people.
Centralized system.
Which they can't.
Right.
And so then everything ends up breaking.
Shortages.
Right.
Bread lines.
So the key is like, I really think the United States is the best form of government we've seen on this planet so far. You have 3 branches. You've got your monarch in the executive, but there's limits and they have to be voted in. Then you have your direct democracy, which is Congress, which is terrible and everyone hates, but at least it's, by, region. And then you have the Council of Elders. So it's like 3 different types of government combined that are constantly yelling at each other. The problem we have is it was impossible for the founding fathers to cover every loophole. Mm-hmm. So I was watching this new video by CGP Grey. Do you guys know who CGP Grey is?
No.
Great YouTube channel. And he was talking about the Supreme Court, and it was very nonpartisan. It's very awesome. And he was explaining that there's something called a recess appointment, that if Congress is in recess, the president can appoint a Supreme Court justice until they come back to vote.
Right.
But what they do something called pro forma sessions, where they basically walk in and go, all rise. There's no one there. Okay, we're done for the day. Everyone have a nice day. That way they're still technically in session.
Whoa.
So it's clearly a manipulation on what the Constitution was supposed to allow. But it's allowed. So Trump should be able, or Obama should have been able, to say Merrick Garland is temporarily being put on the court until Senate comes back and then votes yay or nay. But instead, they just come back. It's like every 4th day, because you're allowed to recess for 3 days. You're allowed to take a break for 3 days. Otherwise, it's considered a recess. So on the 4th day, they come in and they say all duties, relegated to this individual, and then they walk out, and then no one shows up. Yeah. So it's clearly broken. How we fix it, I don't know.
Have you guys heard of the National Initiative? It was a concept to create a 4th branch of government. Mike Gravel, Alaskan senator, I think he was.
Yeah.
So it would make like every state would have a representative, and then each of those representatives would receive data from their constituents, and then they'd be able to pass laws. So it'd basically be like the people's version of the legislation, and then we'd be able to pass laws into the Senate.
But that's literally what the House is.
Well, but it would give the population the ability to write laws, send it to their representative, and then the National Initiative would pass it in.
That's still technically allowed. Like, nothing's stopping any citizen from sending things to the representative.
But then we have to rely on Congress to do it. And like you say, they're corrupt as all get out.
It's not that they're corrupt. They are.
I think they're corrupt.
Yeah. But the problem with Congress and their low approval is likely due to the fact that if one person represents one district, they clearly don't care about all the other districts. Mm-hmm. So if you have like AOC, right, and she wins, and she did really, really well in her primary, you got a ton of people in that district who love her. Everyone else in the country hates her.
Right.
Not everybody, but the majority. So then what's going to happen is you're going to ask everyone in the country, how do you feel about AOC? And most of them are going to say, we don't like her. Because she represents one district. So it's very likely that every member of Congress will have a low national approval rating.
Right. Well,
then Congress gets an overall really low approval rating.
We were kind of talking about this before the show, but that's exactly why I'm at least in favor of balkanization, or at the very least more decentralization, because I think the way the founding fathers imagined the federal government ruling over, all of these different states operating somewhat autonomously was a good idea, right? I think if people in California want to do X, Y, or Z, they should be able to. And if you don't like it, you can move to somewhere more free. But right now, the size of the federal government, I mean, in Canada as well, it's so big that you have these people in California or in Quebec and Ontario, like they vote on legislation that affects everyone in the country. And that, I don't think that's fair. And I think either, let's bring back the concept of city-states or shrink down the federal government and let more of these issues be decided on a local level. So the people who are voting for these laws, who want to live under them, they're not affecting the ones who don't.
And so would you set up like sunset clauses in all current laws so that...
Yeah, I mean, I think it would need to be something like that, because otherwise, I mean, they're like the amount of laws that are on the books, it's literally an oppressive amount.
Yeah, and they never go away.
Right.
It's like we have a tendency towards creating more laws and not getting rid of them.
Yeah.
We talked about this before. There's like ridiculous laws, like you can't take a bath on Sundays in Massachusetts or something, because it was like back then it made sense.
And then they just left it.
Yeah, and they just leave it, but then like no one enforces it.
Yeah.
But then so there's actually something really interesting I was reading about New York. There's this funny story where a black cop went to Central Park and started giving out public drinking tickets to couples having picnics and drinking wine. And he got in trouble for it. And all these people were like, oh, harumph, like I was drinking wine on my picnic. Why was I being cited for public intoxication? And the cop said, because the cops come to my neighborhood and give out tickets to the dudes drinking 40s on their stoop. Oh. So you want to come to my neighborhood and give out tickets? I'm going to come to your hood and give out tickets. And so apparently it created this fiasco where the cop actually got in trouble, which I think is BS because he was totally right.
Yeah, he's within his rights. That's the law. I agree
he's
with
giving
him.
out tickets.
Yeah.
You can't have it. We need equality under the law.
Wow.
But I started reading about this and it was funny. Apparently, when they banned public drinking in New York, it was because of homeless drunk people and like vagrants. And some politician said this law will never be construed. Obviously, this law will never be construed to say that a worker couldn't enjoy a beer with their lunch. And now, quite literally, you can't have a beer with your lunch.
Yeah.
So it's like they write laws thinking we know exactly what the point of this law is. Then 2 generations go by and it's like, I don't know. It says no one's allowed to drink. So
yeah, well, I mean, that's the
No
whole
one's allowed to
debate over like an originalist versus a textualist. And I'm not someone who thinks like, oh, well, this literally says this, so we can ignore the spirit of the law. But that's why I think, you can't leave things up to interpretation. I think you should be as specifically clear as possible. And like even this whole debate over the Second Amendment, I mean, we know from looking through history what the founding fathers meant. I mean, we have people saying, oh, well, that didn't mean weapons of war. Like, there were merchant ships with cannons actually at the time. So
privateers, man, you could have your own warship.
It's pretty obvious what they meant, but because it's not explicitly written enough in these people's opinions, it's up for interpretation.
Do you know the original writing of the Second Amendment was much more clear? It straight up said something to the effect of like, even if you aren't joining any kind of military service, you can still have a gun.
Yeah, they should have left it.
They should. I wonder. I think they didn't because it would have, I guess, banned conscription.
Interesting.
And so that was something having to do with it. But the general idea was if somebody doesn't want to join the military, they're still allowed to have guns. Yeah. They get rid of that. And now the left is going, but it says a well-regulated militia.
Yeah.
What does regulated mean? What was the original concept? Because I've heard some people say it meant regulated in the sense of they have weapons that are clean and operable. I've read things saying that they were, the left says it's regulated by the government. But the government wasn't that powerful or encompassing back then. There was no, like, you could be off in the middle of the woods. There was no regulation over you. Nothing could be done.
There were, like, regulars were military, like,
exactly.
An advanced form of a mility crew. I don't know the definition exactly of what regulars were. So I've read some arguments that it was a reference to having standard equipment. A regulated militia meant... So they all had the same gun. If one dropped it, you could pick it up and you knew how to use it.
Yeah. And so from that reading, it was a militia of people who have guns, know how to use them, and they're up to, they're working and functional is what we need for a free state. Therefore, everyone should be able to have guns. But now they've changed it because the left are, textualists. Like, no, regulated today means something
like if
different.
you had an AR and I had a pistol, we're not regular.
I don't know exactly. No, the argument, like, that would still be. The idea was that you were well equipped. The problem with the textualists is that this manipulation of the far left, changing definitions, is that the Constitution could mean the First Amendment. Okay, let's change the definition of religion, and now all of a sudden you've changed the First Amendment. So if you're a textualist and you're going by what it says based on what we interpret the language today, there's no Constitution at all.
Right. And I agree with that. And I think, isn't Kavanaugh more of a textualist?
I don't know.
Yeah, I think I had read that somewhere, but yeah, I mean, I completely agree that that's a problem, and it's a slippery thing to do.
Yeah.
I would
Yeah.
say regarding militias that it's important if we were going to like form a militia that we all knew how to use each other's weapons.
Well, that's why everyone has standard issue weapons.
Well,
Well,
what do you
in
mean
the
standard
in the
issue?
military.
But like if we were going
So
to
it's
form
the
a
same.
well-regulated militia, it would be like I know how to use your weapon, so we're all trained with each other's weapons in case you go down. I can pick your weapon up and know how to use it and not hurt somebody.
I think the general idea of guns is that. That's it.
Oh, I thought the sentence was just getting started.
No, that was it.
Is that? What do you mean?
Is that?
That's that what it. That's
Well, I mean, if
So
you
when
'78,
have you ever seen that movie? What you call it, The Last Samurai? I think with
Yes.
Tom
I have
Cruise.
not.
Yeah, basically, like the Americans go to Japan and they're like, with these weapons, you can take a random dude and he can press the thing and then boom, you blow somebody up. It allowed them to have, like, to lower the cost of training great warriors. The samurai had to go through all this training and be the best of the best, raised from youth. Now we got a gun, you just crank the lever and then you get some random dude to do it and you're blowing people up. You win.
But you want to know how to
Congratulations.
take it apart, how to clean it.
Now you only need one dude
how
for
to
that.
load it.
Look at the McDonald's method. Have you seen the movie The Founder?
No.
Have you seen The Founder?
No.
It's a good movie. It's about the start of McDonald's.
Oh.
And
yeah.
basically the idea was each person in the McDonald's only knew how to do one simple thing. No one person could make the burger.
Like assembly line.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it
it's
wasn't
like,
regulated. They
your
weren't
job is the
regulars.
lettuce. Your job is the mayo and the mustard. Ketchup is the ketchup and the mustard.
But that's
your
the more
job.
efficient way to do that.
I mean, in the military, is to a point is like that. Like you have one guy's the medic, one
Yeah,
guy's the
you have
grenade launcher.
specialized
But
roles.
everyone trains with the grenade launcher. Everyone trains with the M1.
well, to a certain point, right? I mean, there are still specialized role. Like if you're a radio operator, the average person isn't going to be able to do your job like you are.
Right.
It's like, what is
Yes.
it? The Marine Corps, like every Marine rifleman or infantryman or something like that.
Yeah.
Is that it?
Everyone is at least a rifleman.
Yeah.
Well then, do you think that November 3rd, the United States is going to descend into chaos, fracture into multiple countries, and then someone's going to fire off the nukes and the world's going to blow up and then we're all dead?
Well, you know what the interesting thing is? Because 2020 has been such a terrible year. I mean, I'm ready for 2021. I'm like, let's finish with
It's
this.
like a roller coaster, man. It's fun, huh?
Oh, I'm tired. I'm very tired. I'm tired. I was thinking about this. Like, what probably will happen is the most disruptive thing, and I kind of think the most disruptive thing for a lot of people would be Trump winning. So
Yeah.
I do think that that's going to happen, and I think the people on social media will cry. There will be riots. Liberal governors won't accept help, as kind of has been happening all this summer. But I think life will ultimately go on.
Thanks for checking out this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. We do the show live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. So come back to check us out when we go live. Don't forget to subscribe, hit the like button, hit the notification bell, and we are also available on all podcast platforms for free if you want to listen to us there. Thanks for hanging out, and we will see you all next time.